Joe and I are going to break down three separate trade ideas. One from Joe Doyle at the end of September, one from an anonymous poster at the beginning of October, and one from yours truly this morning. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 128 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav network, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Be sure to give us a 5-star review. And this is the Stack Pack Matt Adventures episode of the podcast. Joe, that's, getting me to say a lot of words like that at the very beginning, a tongue twister. Not always the best idea, but we made it through it. How are we feeling today?
I'm going to be honest, you nailed that. Like, you
Thank you.
absolutely crushed that. Like, as someone who, I mean, you're saying right now that you were kind of doubting yourself going into it. You didn't let the doubt creep in and let it get inside your head. You nailed that. So shout out to Stack Pat Matt for this is your episode, buddy. Fun trade ideas like this, like it's the off season, right? We're here. Sure, there's playoff baseball going on, but as Mariners fans, one, you get to watch playoff baseball pretty much emotion free. You just kind of get to sit there and vibe. But two, there's nothing really positive to talk about at this point of the offseason because like nothing's really nothing actually can happen. Like we're just all kind of waiting in limbo. But you mentioned that the first trade that we're going to talk about here was posted by Joe Doyle. I think it was on September 24th. So towards the end of the year, people are starting to kind of look forward to the offseason, what's going on, what teams need, what the Mariners have in excess. And obviously the conversation has been trading a pitcher for what, a year and a half now, based on like how their organization has developed it. And the trade idea itself, I think, is fine in practice. The issue is the receiving end that the Mariners would get. Bro is popping off in the postseason right now, Colton. Mark Vientos almost willed the Mets to a game 2-0 series lead against the Phillies in Philadelphia. They couldn't hold on. Phillies do take that one. But Colton, Mark Vientos' stocks are rising. Okay. I bet you Joe Doyle didn't think that Mark Vientos was going to go on this crazy postseason historic run. But if you did, hopefully you placed a bet on BetOnline saying Mark Vientos is going to hit an anytime home run and you would have cashed out big. So, a word from BetOnline. Thank you to BetOnline for being a sponsor for the Hit It Here podcast. Postseason baseball, but most importantly, the NFL regular season is here, and BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. And if you think that you know your stuff, get in on the $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. Head to the website today to get in on the action, and remember, BetOnline, the game starts here. No more waiting around. Colton, the starting pitcher that Joe Doyle proposed for Mark Vientos, it's not Brian Wu. It's not Bryce Miller, the one that I think a lot of, they were going to trade him last. No, it's Luis Castillo. Okay, the no trade clause having, $20 million earning, former ace of the Seattle Mariners pitching staff. Injured at the end of this year, unfortunate, only made 30 starts. Not his best year. Luis Castillo for Mark Vientos. I'd say a lot of Mariners fans, when that idea was originally kind of floated out there on the internet, were like, yeah, given what we've seen at third base, what we could use, Mark Vientos had a phenomenal year for the Mets. Really took over, supplanted himself as the that's not the right word, cemented himself as the main guy at third over Brett Beatty, the skeleton behind Colton in his camera. Vientos put up a 2.9 F4 in 2024 in 111 games, hit 27 home runs, drove in 71 RBI, did post a almost 30% strikeout rate. So not great, but we've seen guys have success just across baseball in general with a high strikeout rate in the past. He wouldn't be a free agent until God knows when, 2030, yeah. Right? Like, so much club control. The Mets would be silly to trade a guy like this, especially when he's got such a proven bat. You could probably work on his defense at third if you really need to. And if you're getting an aging veteran starter, I think you can probably work around giving up less. And that's the sentiment a lot of Mets fans had around that trade idea, was that, like, I don't really know if this is worth it for the team. Mariners fans are like, yeah, duh. Like, give us Mark Vientos because we've got him until 2030 and he goes right in the middle of your order and you don't lose, like, one of your better, like, sure, Castillo's a great starting pitcher, but you can replace Castillo. Like, can you replace Mark Vientos in-house, like, from a Mariners perspective, like what you've got in your organization right now? Probably not. I would do that trade 1-for-1, like, very easily, and I'd hope you do the same.
Yeah, I would definitely do this trade 1-for-1 if I'm the Mariners. The Mets in a million years would never do this. For a multitude of reasons. Obviously, all signs are pointing to decline of Luis Castillo moving forward. He looks like a guy that, unfortunately for the Mariners, is going to be locked up under contract and is only going to get worse. Now, we could be wrong. I hope we're wrong. I love Luis, but that's just kind of the way it looks. The Mets would probably instead rather do like another young player, like Brian Wu, 1-for-1 for Mark Vientos. But then the Mariners like, oh well, we're not getting any money off our books. We're not getting any like we're losing club control, etc. Blah blah blah. Castillo's under contract through 2027 with a vesting option for 2028. That vesting option is, I Bleav, at 180 million or 180 million pitched, 180 innings pitched
Whoa.
in 2027. So we'll see what happens there. There's also a buyout with that option. If he spends X amount of time on the injured list or something like that. We won't get too much into that. But yeah, I don't think, unfortunately, that the Mets would do this, especially now with what they've seen out of Vientos over the past, couple of weeks, because dude is electric in the playoffs. I mean, I'm wearing my Washington Nationals Bryce Harper jersey because I don't own a Phillies one, and Phillies won that game. But anyway, I don't know. I think that it's a tough ask for Mariners fans to think they can trade Luis Castillo and his $24 million a year contract for a guy who is obviously on the rise, a guy who looks like he's a budding superstar, and think that the Mets would take on all that contract. I know the Mets don't care about spending money and whatnot, so maybe.
Mhm.
But overall, I personally don't see this one happening.
I think the sentiment as well is like you'd probably rather just keep Vientos and sign someone in free agency, especially from an organization that doesn't, like you're saying, doesn't really care about money spent. Like, just go sign Corbin Burns if you're really looking to go spend $20+ million on a pitcher for an annual average, and then keep Vientos and allow him to grow within that organization. Because one, you take him out of this spot that he's in right now, with surrounded by guys like Lindor. I mean, Pete Alonso this postseason. Brandon Nimmo's been a gamer. Like, I mean, not like he's not like on the same plane as those guys, but like Jose Iglesias feels like a guy that, for whatever reason, like if you're around him, something good can come from that, as far as like just like a growth perspective, like good bat to ball skills, a savvy veteran that's been around for 10+ years that just somehow sticks in places and helps teams win. Like, the Mets not giving up is not the right way, but like trading Mark Vientos at his peak, one, they can get more than Luis Castillo, but also like that'd be a trade that would haunt that organization for a long time if they really were worried about it. And I don't think they've liked what they've seen out of Brett Beatty. They'd probably rather trade him to a team that thinks that they can fix him and get some sort of other smaller return there, and keep Vientos for the foreseeable future and watch him, eventually be your 3, 4, 5 hitter for years to come until 2030.
Yeah, I think that when you look at Brett Beatty, I mean, we look at his career overall so far, because he was a very highly touted prospect in the Mets organization. He has a career OPS plus of 70 in about 169 nice games played. He's running a career strikeout rate about 26.4%, so not terrible there. But the home run power has not been there for him. In that 169 game span, 15 home runs for Brett Beatty, hitting 215. Like, they don't necessarily have the guy in-house right now to go out there and replace Brett Beatty. However, maybe they are okay with trading Vientos and they go sign Bregman or something like that, which is another option. But I agree, the easiest way for them to supplement their starting rotation is just go out and sign somebody this offseason. With that being said, the next one that was proposed by a anonymous person on Twitter, it was the Mariners acquiring closer Rafael Iglesias. Yeah, that guy, the one that threw the bucket or the cooler or whatever it was on the field after the Jesse Winker brawl. So Rafael Iglesias has come to the Mariners, and in exchange, Mitch Haniger, Michael Morales, and Ryan Bliss would be headed back to the Braves. There's also $1.5 million coming back to the Mariners in this deal as well. I Bleav it's a bit of a wash in terms of money. But for the Mariners, this would simply be trying to trade a bad contract for not necessarily a bad contract, because obviously Iglesias was good this year.
Mm-hmm.
But Michael Morales, pretty highly touted pitching prospect in the Mariners farm system. Ryan Bliss, I mean, we've seen him in the big leagues already. He's a guy that is probably ready to take on a role every day in the big leagues. Maybe not like a starting second baseman, but as like a rover or something like that. And then, of course, we know the story with Mitch Haniger. He is basically a sunk cost at this point. I personally don't think this is a bad trade idea. I just don't see why the Braves would do it. Simply because of how good Iglesias was in 2024. You look at his numbers. He had a 1.95 ERA in 66 games pitched, 69 and a third innings pitched with a 2.14 ERA plus. Like, dude was good in
Mm-hmm.
2024. His strikeout rate way down though. He's a career 10.7. In 2024, it was 8.8. So way down compared to it was in years past. But yeah, overall, Iglesias has been great for the Braves ever since they got him in 2022. He signed for about $16 million a year for 2024 and for 2025. And then he's a free agent after 2025. So it's very similar to Mitch's deal. I Bleav you actually take on more money in that contract because Mitch will be a free agent after 2025. Oh no, same thing. They'll both be free agents at the end of 2025. Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, money wise, it's basically a wash, but I don't see why, unless for some reason the Braves see something they really like in Michael Morales and Ryan Bliss. I don't see a reason why they would do this.
The thing that I think could entice the Braves, like you're saying, is Michael Morales as far as pitching depth in their organization is concerned. Like they're going to lose Max Fried this offseason should they choose to not re-sign him. There's I think legitimate concern about Spencer Strider's future as far as longevity, like his elbow, how long it's going to hold up. Like it's just having as much pitching depth as you can never hurt, right? And sure, Hurston Waldrop, Spencer Schwellenbach, that's a tongue twister, bro. Spencer Schwellenbach, oh, dude, there's double of them. AJ Smith Shawver. Gotta slow down, dude. They've got a lot of young talent, but like, how much can they really rely on it? I think getting a guy that can follow in suit right behind those last two that I just said to kind of fill out the rotation at the bottom should they need that help. Because like, how much longer is Chris Sale really going to be pitching at the top of the line for them? Like, will he be healthy next year? Like, they're going to need that depth, and I think Michael Morales is a nice piece to add in there. You get a weak side platoon veteran presence in Mitch Haniger, sure, for a lot of money, but I mean, if they want to platoon him and Jared Kelenic together, they can, right? Like just run that back. Peak 2022 Mariners, run that back. And with Ryan Bliss, like you're saying, it's a guy that feels like could be a rover, just a nice utility guy off the bench for the Braves that maybe they're wanting to move on from Orlando Arcia at some point soon. Like if Ozzy Albies continues to have little like like nagging injuries throughout the season where he can only go like 120 games, Ryan Bliss can fill in for you sporadically throughout the year and like be okay. I just, like you're saying, for the Braves, like why would they want to get rid of their back end of their closer guy unless they've got some sort of contingency plan for it? And the thing that stands out to me the most for Raisel Iglesias, in 2024, bro gave up 4 home runs. That's it. 4 home runs in 69 and third innings pitched, a .52 home runs per nine. That's like elite level of not letting the ball leave the yard. And a guy that's in the back end of your pen, sure, maybe the strikeouts are down a tad bit, but still, like you're saying, a phenomenal year for Iglesias in his age 34 season. So maybe they're like, oh, he's aging, he's lost some velocity on, like whatever, right? There can be a multitude of reasons why teams would want to trade or want to take in other assets for aging veterans like this. Like you're getting decent control for 1 year of a 35-year-old reliever. Like you look at the Paul Sewald trade. We got a ton of control for, like, the Mariners got a ton of control for a year and a half of, a reliever in their 30s. Like I'd consider that trade similar to this one that was proposed. It's just you are taking on a bit, maybe not a bit more money. There's just more money involved because of Iglesias' contract and then Haniger's contract.
I think also with the Paul Sewald one, the guys that you got back, like you didn't get back a Michael Morales in that deal, like a guy who really feels like he's going to be a middle of the rotation starter at some point in his career.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dominic Canzone, a lot of upside there, but obviously a lot of issues. Ryan Bliss is a guy that I think Ryan Bliss was probably the like prize of that trade. I still think he will be a starting second baseman at some point. But he hasn't shown it yet, which is unfortunate. So for the Braves specifically, I'm not sure if they'd want to go that route because think about all the starting pitchers they've had in the past. Like Michael Soroka is a guy that stands out to me. I loved Michael Soroka. I thought he was so good. I thought he was the next big thing. So much so that I wanted a Braves Michael Soroka jersey back in the day.
Damn.
Ian Anderson is another one that's like injuries kind of got to him. So I don't know. I look to young pitchers for the Braves, and I really think that they might pivot away from trying to basically. It doesn't seem like they're good at developing pitching. Spencer Strider, sure. Max Fried, sure. But like when you look at their team, Chris Sale is a guy who proven came in. Now maybe nobody thought he was going to be as good as he was this year because my goodness was he insane on the mound.
Mm-hmm.
However, proven guy, I think they would probably rather again go out into the free agent market and get a pitcher this offseason rather than trying to trade for like a young guy who may never make it in Michael Morales. With that being said, though, in terms of money for them, like I don't know if they're willing to go out there and spend money, the money it's going to cost to re-sign Max Fried, or the money it would cost for them to go get Corbin Burns. I'm not sure. And so for them, they definitely need pitching this offseason. Like there's no question about that. I don't know if Michael Morales is that guy for them. I don't know if that's someone that they'd be willing to. I don't know. It's tough because that's not necessarily they need pitching now. They don't need pitching in a couple of years. They need it now. The Braves team is a team that you look at the things they went through this year, losing Ronald Acuna, losing Spencer Strider. They're going to be right back in it next year if those guys are healthy, in my opinion. And because of that, they probably want to keep their elite closer, who was one of the best in baseball, for one more year for a run. And if at the trade deadline, maybe they're out of it or it's not look good, then they trade him. But with that being said, also this is the peak of his value. Like his value is probably not going to go up next year because of how good he was this year. Like if they do want to capitalize on that, I don't see that as an issue. I just don't know if them capitalizing on the value that Rafael Iglesias has is getting Mitch Haniger back in return. But we saw what they did with Evan White. We saw what they did with Marco Gonzalez. They were able to flip those contracts somewhere pretty easily, and they just had Jared Kelenic at the end. So maybe that would be something similar in this deal where they would basically get Ryan. Basically, it would be a trade of Rafael Iglesias for Ryan Bliss and Michael Morales, and that's it. Mm-hmm. In which case, I feel like they could do better.
I just don't know. Again, like it for me, it stems back to like why would they want to get rid of a back end closer where you're looking at the postseason, how it's shaping up right now. Bullpen stability has been the name of the game for trying to win games. And when your bullpen has not been stable, your bullpen is not getting outs when they need to get outs, you're giving up leads. It's a back and forth battle, and it's causing you to exhaust more resources in that bullpen. Not to say that, like, I mean, I don't want to say like they're not looking for like towards the postseason, but they should be because their window of contention is still very much so open right now. And trading a guy that is a dependable, 3 up, 3 down kind of reliever, I don't see why they'd want to do that personally, but it's all just fun and games for like roster off-season kind of trade ideas,
Which is exactly what we're doing. Yeah. So it's like, but does that bring us to my trade, Joe?
Yeah, I'm ready for this fully random, fully sporadic, I have no idea what Colton's about to say to us right now. I'm with you guys on this one. I have no idea what Colton's about to spew out of his little mouth over there, but he was excited. Okay. He was so excited that he texted me about it.
Yeah, I was like, hey man, we should talk about this on the pod tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, yeah, let's make it happen.
So make it happen,
Joe. In the National League East. Okay. As many of you know, so what stemmed this was the fact that Alec Boehm was benched today. Okay. So I'm once again revisiting Alec Boehm to the Mariners. Okay. But not just Alec Boehm. The Mariners are giving up Luis Castillo in this deal. But the Mariners are also taking on Taijuan Walker, who had a absolutely horrendous year. He was horrible for the Phillies. He had a 7.10 ERA with a 57 ERA plus. He was bad for the Phillies in 2024. So that's something where the Mariners like maybe hopefully they can turn him around. But the full trade package is Alec Boehm and Taijuan Walker come to the Mariners in exchange for Luis Castillo and Austin Voth. Just in terms of money here, this is basically a wash. The Phillies are taking on $26.35 million in that deal next year. The Mariners are taking on $26.1 million. So it's basically a wash. However, for the Mariners, you can slot Taijuan into your 5 and hope you can fix him. You could also just say, screw you, Taijuan, just eat and figure out what to do with the money and bring up, Michael Morales or someone. Okay. Alec Boehm slides right in at third base for you, obviously. Mm-hmm. I was actually shocked he wasn't that good this year.
No.
I know he was an all-star and stuff, but he was a lot worse than I thought he was. And for the Mariners, obviously, Luis Castillo is like we talked about already. We talked about this already, but he's declining. He's getting older. He's making $20 million a year. He, again, is signed through 2027 with a vesting option for 28. Taijuan Walker is signed through 2026 at $18 million a year.
Okay.
And so that money falls off a year earlier for Taijuan. Alec Boehm,
he's projected to make $8.1 million in arbitration this season, and he's a free agent after 2026 as well.
So both guys are free agents after 2026. So the Phillies get 1 extra year of control with Luis Castillo, unless, of course, he hits that vesting option, in which case it's 2 extra years. And then Austin Voth is projected to get $2.2 million in arbitration this offseason. He's a free agent after 2026. So everybody other than Luis Castillo is a free agent after 2026. For the Mariners, this fills their need at third base, and they get a guy in the rotation that they know, they like, and maybe they can turn him around. For the Phillies, they get another guy in their rotation who can be an ace, like has that pedigree, has been there, done that, has played in the National League before, a guy that you can slot in behind Zach Wheeler. And then they get Austin Voth, the guy they can add to their bullpen if they want to for relatively cheap.
I mean, Castillo's probably their 3. He's behind Aaron Nola.
True. And at the same time, he would definitely waive his no trade clause to go to the Phillies.
Yeah, like for a chance to win, pretty much like be a perennial contender. Whereas like, sure, the Mariners are contending, but like maybe not as on the same level as the Phillies. I don't know if you said it in there because I was getting frustrated because your audio was like cutting out a tad bit, which was making me like want to bash my skull through a wall. But did you mention Alec Boehm, how much control he has or where he's at in terms of free agency?
Yeah, so he'll be a free agent after 2026 as well.
Okay.
He's in arbitration.
So you've got him for 2 seasons, 2025 and 2026?
Correct.
What was
so you'd have him and Taijuan both through 2020.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 2026.
I feel like, I mean, Taijuan's that's like kind of like a wash situation. Like, I don't think they'd want to use Taijuan given how poor he was this last year. I guess not concerned. I just don't know why the Phillies would do it. If it's in the realm of they're going to go out and upgrade at third base, like if they're going to go sign Alex Bregman kind of a situation, like I could see that being a possibility for them. But
I mean, they also like Edmundo Sosa over there at third base.
Yeah,
who had a relatively okay year as well. So
I think it can work functionally. I think honestly, I was gonna say
if I had to give up like a prospect in that trade, I would too.
Yeah, I was gonna say like adding one more small piece in to incentivize the Phillies to, because like they're not gonna use Taijuan. I really don't know if they'd use Austin Voth. Like, sure, he could be like their 8th man in the pen kind of situation, 7th man. Like, he's not gonna give you big leverage innings, but he'd be fine.
Right.
I don't dislike Boehm. I worry about the defense, but Perry Hill can work his magic. The season for himself was fine. It just wasn't taking him out of the Phillies lineup, I think, is where then it becomes a larger concern about offensive production at third base. Like, sure, 15 homers, 97 RBI, but like that's in the idea that you're operating in one of the best offenses in baseball with a lot of run scoring or like driving and run opportunities. On this Mariners team per se, like he's probably not passing 75 RBI, especially in 2024. 2025 offense could look completely different. We don't know yet. I don't hate it. I think it solves your problem at third base for like a very stable, like everyday force. Again, defense I'd be a little suspicious about, but he doesn't strike out a ton. 14.2%, very, very solid. I mean, walks I think a little bit below league average, but again, that's not. I don't think you're gonna worry about that a ton, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's a career 277 hitter.
Yeah, like he
327
makes good
OBP,
contact.
not great. Right, exactly. He's he's not gonna hit the cover off the ball. I mean, he hit 15 home runs this year. His career high is 20.
He's more of a doubles guy.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's kind of where my head's at. I was thinking that Voth is really just in there to make the money even. But then if they do go out there and decide to go get Alex Bregman to add to this lineup, or they do decide to just go with Edmundo Sosa, maybe they want to like not have to pay Bohm the next few years. I don't know.
Hmm.
But and at the same time, there have just been so many times where it seems like the relationship between Alec Bohm and the Phillies has soured, which
Yeah.
I don't think it has, but it's like I know that he was pretty pissed off today that he was not starting and it was Edmundo Sosa instead because he's been really struggling. I know he was not happy when he got that phone call today. They were talking about it on the broadcast a little bit.
Hmm.
So it's like if the relationship has soured and they do feel like they need to move on from him, I don't know. He's just a guy that, in my opinion, makes a lot of sense for the Mariners. It's not the end all be all, and you probably let him walk at the end of your contract because then maybe Colt Emerson's ready, but he's
Yeah.
clearly better than Josh Rojas. You know what I mean?
Especially like offensively, and he can also. I mean, hasn't done it a ton in 2024, but in 2023, before Harper was, I think, back playing for, or was that 2022? That was 2023 when Harper came
Mhm.
back and was deep, like being first base, right?
Yep. Yep.
He Bohm was playing first base, so he can go over there and play first base for you. Should you not re-sign Justin Turner or go get a veteran presence in Carlos Santana or Christian Walker, etc. Right? Like he could be like first base for you sometimes if you have an idea that like you wanted Dylan Moore to go play third base for a day or however the roster construction works. There's a little bit of flexibility there with Alec Bohm. I think I do it if I'm Seattle because again, if you're worried about your pitching staff, I think one, if you're taking on Taijuan, if you fix him, great. If you don't, sure, the money might be a sunk cost, which is probably the biggest hiccup in this whole idea is like Taijuan Walker's money, honestly. And then if he's a sunk cost, then you just go with Emerson Hancock. I think honestly, it'd be like I'd be fine with for the majority of the year if need be. And then Logan Evans comes up and he's ready to go. So I think I'd probably do it just for like the sake of like trying to shake things up within the organization. But losing Castillo would be hard, but him going to a contender every year, I mean, falling into that 3 spot for the Phillies ahead of Sanchez and Suarez as well, like that's a good spot for him to go to.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at Taijuan, again, it's the Mariners like pitching lab that I feel like, if anyone can fix him, it's the Mariners.
Sure.
He was bad this year. He was serviceable the year prior to that in Philadelphia. He's really only been bad in Philly. The year prior to this year, had a 4.38 over 172 and 2/3. So 8 innings for him, 98 ERA plus. But I mean, when he was with the Mets, 3.49 in 2022. Obviously, he with the Mariners, he's had the best starts of his career. With the Mariners overall, that's not true. He was good with Arizona for a while, but with the Mariners overall, he has a 4.17 over 384 innings pitched, 94 ERA plus for Taijuan there. Like it's a ballpark he's comfortable with. It's an environment he knows. Like maybe there's something to like. Remember, I feel like it was Sonny Gray when he went to the Yankees and he was just terrible.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, the lights are too bright for him. Like that he just can't handle being in this kind of market. It could be the same thing for Taijuan. Not to say that he would come back and be elite for you, but you don't need him to.
Yeah.
Like if he comes back and he's your 5, he's an expensive ass 5. But when the rest of your rotation isn't making, basically the rest of your rotation is making less than him combined. Like you can eat that. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
and so that's where my head was at with it. It was a fun trade idea to put together. I would do it personally as a Mariners fan. I don't know if the Phillies would do it. It really would depend on how they feel about free agency going and getting Alex Bregman because he's going to be expensive. That would make that infield insane though if they went and got Bregman. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Um, but also, if they like Edmundo Sosa enough to keep him over there at third base and maybe give him the reins for a little bit, that's an option as well. I don't know. I think it's a fun one. I don't know if it'll ever happen. It might be shooting for the stars a little bit, but the money was a wash. I was like, yeah, let's go with that. Let us know in the comments down below what you think of these 3 trade ideas. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 128 of the Hit It Here podcast, presented by Bet Online, the Richie Blackburn episode of the podcast, and go Mariners.